So, Michaela, we were just talking about check-in groups and connected to the relationship. What was that comment there?
So, with connection, so basically, not connections, check-in. Check-in is a time every morning where we go to one specific check-in teacher and we basically get mixed in with a bunch of different people who you wouldn't normally necessarily associate yourself with. So they don't filter you in with any specific thing. So it's any kid, any age group, any subject, any like that. And you basically form connections like that so that you're not stuck with the friends you basically entered with. Like, I'm not like, this is my group. Don't talk to me. You're not in my group. It creates that feeling of, we're all together in the school. We can all work together and learn from each other. So the IGs can learn from the ASs who already covered the content. And I find that it helps break up this idea of a clique.
Yeah.
So instead of one singular group who runs the school, it's now everyone kind of has a connection with everyone else and we can kind of all integrate and you don't really necessarily always feel alone. Because it's always like, okay, I actually have a connection with this one person who's in AS. I can actually go chat to them for this break because my friend's not here. So it just helps break up the clickiness of high school.
Absolutely. Can I tell you on that note, my biggest bugbear, can I tell you what it is?
Clicks.
But it's also a telltale sign for me. So when you come to school for the first time, what are you used to? Especially if you come from another high school.
A friend group.
You walk in the door, and this happens mainly with boys, but girls do it too from time to time. They come in with a backpack, right, or their bag of books, all right? That bag of books does not get put down anywhere unattended. Here at Peak, how many people do you see walking around with a bag on their back?
Literally no one.
Literally no one. So again, what we're trying to do is create a space for you to... my wife stands with her handbag on and I ask her, what train are you waiting for? Because it looks like you're ready to leave. But generally, when you take your stuff off and you throw it on the floor and pretend it's your bedroom, you kind of feel at home.
Because
right?
also when you come in here on a Monday morning, you've got like the boys sitting there and then the girls over here, and then there's just bags. It's not like, it's just you walk in and it's like kind of like an obstacle course, it's just bags everywhere. And then you've got like books lying everywhere and it's like, oh, whose pencil case is this? And everyone's like, I don't know. They'll come get it when they need it.
Let's not talk about stationery because parents will get upset with the amount of stationery that gets lost. But so it's always interesting for me to see how long it takes a person to settle in quickly.
Yeah.
It's by the bag on their back kind of story. For girls, because we're differently wired, guess what your telltale sign would possibly be? You're close, but not the lunch box. It's got to do with the content.
Oh,
Textbook.
lunch. Whether you eat it or
Lunch.
not.
What about
Whether you eat it, because
Yes,
Exactly.
that is true,
if
yeah.
you don't eat it, then it means you're not comfortable with the
Yeah.
people you're around.
Oh, now where did you get that from? Exactly, but that's true. When we feel comfortable, we will eat, we will socialize, and make the space our
Yeah,
own.
that's actually, I've never really thought about that before, but it's very true. Because like with us, it's kind of like a communal, like your lunchbox is not your lunchbox
Absolutely.
only. It's everyone's lunchbox.
Yeah, sometimes that does.
Unfortunately, yeah.
I also remember like first day at Peak, it was very like everyone would walk in and it was like dead silent. There were speakers,
Yeah.
but no one was singing with the music, no one was dancing, no one was talking.
It was just kind of
And
sitting.
It was just really awkward. And then we all kind of like started finding the few people we actually want to talk to and okay, hey, like da-da-da. Break time comes. You're right, I didn't see a single lunchbox open.
No one.
It was just, everyone was like, I'm starving, but I'm not going to eat.
Exactly, and then fast forward 2 months, and everybody's like,
No, like everyone's just like sharing. Because like we've got this thing now, we order from the cafe and it's like, oh, you've got chips. Oh, they're mine now.
Yeah.
They're mine now.
Yeah, it's like, it's so
Or you didn't
bad.
bring lunch. Here, have some of mine.
Yeah.
Like, it's very...
So can you see how important relationship is and we can look at it from so many different angles that it becomes vitally important. Now, just that's all fairly touchy, right? Some of the guys, you're like, oh, that's very nice, but let's not talk about that. But at the end of the day, if we have happy students who feel comfortable and in a safe space, what do you think happens? It's not rocket science.
I would say
We work better, right? Yeah. The focus is becomes then the academics. We often, the alarm bell that rings for us is when a student stops doing academics. That's when the bell rings. But if you actually went backwards a few steps and went, let's look at the person and go, oh, we're unhappy where we are, we're not happy with ourselves, you get what I'm saying? Then we get it. But if we can reverse that into happiness, the results follow. So that's it. You got a question for me?
How did Peak get its name? Because it's a very interesting name.
Now that's an interesting question. So Peak is turning 10 in January. So we've got 4 months to go, and then we will be a big old 10, double digit. And so with our a few people that were coming up with names and things, we were sitting in a restaurant at the mall, and we were staring out of the window. And I was staring into that way. Oh, there's our logo there. I was staring into the mountain, over the ocean, Nuatuk, Houtbaai. And we were thinking, and we came up with some really, if I may say, stupid names.
Like?
I can't even remember they were that stupid. And so I was staring at this mountain, that mountain, Chapman's Peak, which is what you see there. That is the outline of the mountain. And so I suddenly thought, well, why don't we call it Peak? And then always when you're doing this, you kind of look at the meaning behind it, right? So reach the peak, peak performance, that kind of thing. So it kind of made sense. And we're surrounded by peaks in the valley. So we thought, well, what better way to, actually put it into physical terms? And so we actually traced that off of a window in the distance at somebody's house. We just walked into their house and traced it on their lounge window because it was the right angle, and that's how the name came about.
So what's with the seagull?
And then it's not a seagull, it's a bird. Because sometimes we put a glass ceiling on our own purpose, right? And so we wanted to say, you can reach the peak, but actually you can soar above it. And so that's why we put the bird there.
Damn, so
call it an eagle, call it
Very,
whatever.
very
It's
symbolic.
It's a bird.
It's just
you
a
can go
bird.
higher than
Your peak.
Your peak.
I always just thought it's because we're in Fishhook and
Yeah.
so mountainy. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, cool, mountains.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's keep the ball rolling. What was your question?
Why did you choose to start a high school?
That's an even better question, because I prefer high school kids. Ask me why.
Why?
Because you have reasoning happening, right? There's all these pathways, new pathways that are being formed. And so number one is parents become like, I remember my son coming home, got into grade 8, and it was Mrs. Bueta. That was his grade 8 teacher. And you can imagine what happened. Mrs. Bueta said this, and Mrs. Bueta said that, and whatever Miss Bueta said went. So we suddenly became chopped liver, and Miss Bueta became... And that was because there's a point, and especially for homeschool kids, they find this, that parents suddenly start to struggle when you get into those high school years, because you're actually looking for role models.
Yeah.
And parents were great being role models in primary school, but in high school, it changes, right? There's a bit of a bashing of heads, right? So you need somebody outside. And so I love teaching high school kids because I love it when the light bulb moment happens. the light goes on. And and then they think I am the bee's knees. So that's part of it. Just simply because I'm thinking and you're not. So I help switch on the brain.
Subtle insult.
Try and reason with a primary school student. It's very difficult. So I love this age group, and that's why we started a high school. And it's an important stage. So we have to choose universities. We have to make some big decisions. And the PIP's not even on yet. You know what I'm talking about, right? You know what the PIP is?
Common sense.
Yes, that prefrontal cortex is not working. So yeah, I love that stage. Yeah.
So how did Peak come about?
Yes. Okay. So besides the name that we've figured out, I really wanted to create a space that kept learning, but got rid of high school, the term school. So the traditional kind of, because sometimes we get stuck in this rut of not learning, because it's tradition, it's the rote learning of it all, right? So I thought, well, how do we kickstart this learning thing? So we rented out a first floor parking garage here around the corner. In fact, you can see it just over there. And we decided we were going to paint Google colors on the walls, like Google Office-y kind of thing. I don't know if we were, no, we weren't first. It's a pity, we could have said we were, but we weren't. And I bought a boat, a fishing boat.
Oh, yeah.
And put cushions in it, and we didn't have fat sacks. We had those other things. What are they called? Bean bags. There was more beans all over the place than bag. But anyway, it's one of those things. And so we really tried. When people walked in, they needed to understand that they could think differently. There was a different kind of space for people to be in that took, say your buzzword, ownership. And so we had to kind of kickstart this ownership, and so that's what it was. So we really needed to take like off the walls. So we were tutor center. I didn't want to become a school because that meant we would have to conform and all of that. And anyway, to be recognized by anybody, you've got to be registered, and that's just how it is. So I gave up the fight, and we became a school. Not a lot has changed, right? We still do off-the-wall stuff, but that allowed us to become a Cambridge school. So we've got our sign over there. A Cambridge International School, which allowed us to do exams and a whole lot of other stuff. And so, so that's why we started how it came about. So we've been on a 10-year journey. I cannot believe it.